business now on the M-Cube network. We are here today because we have problems with the Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT8, which is all-wheel drive, which is the reason I bought it. When I bought it, that was one of the things that turned me on. Well, we'll stop right there. As you can see from as we update our last video, I am rolling in the Jeep SRT8, and I have zero traction control lights or anything. That is because the problem has been solved. At this point, it's kind of a false alarm because the Jeep, you know what? Let's just do this right. Let's just do this right. Stop bullshit. The Jeep, my Jeep, had a very serious problem. Traction control, transfer case locked up on my wife, as you know from the last video, and I start chasing it down. This is something that problem we get into, you know, working on our own cars. You know, we start chasing stuff down and spend a lot of money and buy a lot of things and go chase down a lot of rabbit holes and just ain't right. And that's what I did too. So I went out and bought a bunch of stuff, bought some sensors for the transmission, which this transmission doesn't even have. Luckily, they were only about 12 bucks. But I also bought a new transfer case motor, which turns out I didn't really need. But I mean, at 131,000 miles, it's probably time to get a new motor anyway. So anyway, did all of that, pulled the old motor out, driving around two-wheel drive mode for a long time, and then the Jeep started tripping hard, started giving me the cutting the throttle out while I'm driving. I'm on the freeway doing like 85 and then just lose power. Oh, man, like, oh no. And I could barely feather the power. Like, I could pedal. I can only get like 2,200 RPMs out of it. Slowed down about 72 and then keep rolling. But all the lights lit up on the dash just like before. Turns out the whole time it was the front left wheel speed sensor. That's all it was. Did all that damage to me and my soul. I have two cars down at the same time, and I don't like that. And it was rough because we're going through a lot. We're dealing with things. I had some stuff going on. We had to be places and this, that, other thing. And I got the 300s cutting up. Still don't know what that is, but we about to handle it. The Jeep start cutting up. So we in the Magnum non-stop. That's it. Just the Magnum. Running that around, running that to its death. It held up. But this one here is fixed. Got out today in the morning. Changed that wheel speed sensor. Erased all the codes. Everything cut off. I mean, all the lights gone from the dash. Everything's clean. Got in, drove it. Transfer case is fine. Wasn't binding anymore. No problems. The motor works fine. Did a hard launch. Worked fine. I mean, this is my last straw. I was going to change this one out. And then according to one of the homies on the forum, on Facebook, he was telling me that this transmission, the NAG1 that we use with this all-wheel drive setup, has an internal speed sensor inside the transmission, which will require dropping the transmission, taking off the valve body. It's underneath the valve, or on top of the valve body inside the transmission. So that's a full day of paying a mechanic to drop my tranny, put this thing in. It's cost like 300 bucks at AutoZone. Never heard of this part. Had no idea it existed. 300 bucks for this big giant piece that goes inside the transmission, and there's a speed sensor in there. So you got that one, and then you got all the four wheel speed sensors. So thankfully, thank the good Lord above, it was just one of my wheel one of my wheel speed sensors causing all those problems. Locked up the truck for the most part. And another thing, when it did start locking up, I went with my Predator and turned off the traction control, thinking that would help me. There is still traction control stuff going on, even when it's fully disabled with the Predator, because I turned the traction control off, but I was still getting the throttle cut. as if I was spinning out or something, because it was getting bad info from this one wheel sensor, which was kind of new. This was the wheel speed sensor that I put on with the wheel bearing that I put on when I did the 6-piston brakes. I can't believe that one died already. So I'm keeping an eye on the other one. I bought a couple of Detroit wheel hubs, but they had the wrong size studs, wrong knurl size on the bottom of the studs, so I couldn't use them. But I kept them. This is 2-3 years ago, right? When I did the 6 pistons. I kept them anyway, went and bought the Mevitech, put them on there. So I had extra wheel speed sensors sitting around, so I pulled the other one off of the other Detroit hub, and it's in the back right now with a with the small hex that I need and anything else I need to change it on the fly should it go out. But I'm probably gonna lift it up and do all the fluids and transfer case fluid, front, rear diff, and then put that wheel speed sensor on the front right before it happens again. But lesson learned when driving an all-wheel drive Jeep WK1 and possibly the 2s, stay up on those wheel speed sensors, because they will wreak all kind of havoc and render your vehicle damn near undrivable. If I hadn't unplugged the transfer case, I would not have been able to drive this thing without destroying my transfer case. And then I still had to deal with the other phantom stuff going on in the back of the computer or whatever, because the wheel speed sensor was giving out bogus information to the computer. So either way, man, look, stay on them wheel speed sensors. And if you get a service 4-wheel drive, your truck start acting funny, and you don't think you've burned up the transfer case, look into those wheel speed sensors. You might need a app. I'll put a link to it in the description. The app that I use and the little ELM transmitter, this little thing here. I use this one, iCar Pro. Come on, zoom in. There we go. Anyway, I use this one. Plugs right into the OBD2. And it communicates with a lot of apps, a lot of different apps. I got 2 apps on my phone that can read it and go into the codes. They'll show you different codes, you know, even transmission stuff, airbag stuff, body module stuff. So anyway, get some of that and you can find out. And I did get the code for the front left wheel speed sensor a few times along with other codes. But that is the only wheel speed sensor code I got in this whole ordeal. It kept showing up over and over again, so I changed that when it solved the problem. So I'm back on the road. Thank you very much for watching. And hey, so what happens when you keep that Hemi on your right foot at all times? Like, share, subscribe. Appreciate you.